In the quiet town of Ipswich, Suffolk, a terrifying shadow loomed over the community. A serial killer was on the loose. What had once been a peaceful and ordinary place quickly turned into the center of one of the most chilling manhunts in modern British history. Over a span of just 6 weeks, 5 women, vulnerable, young, and working as prostitutes, were brutally murdered, their bodies discovered one by one, sending waves of fear and panic throughout the town. The gruesome nature of the crimes shocked the nation, and the pressure on the police force intensified with every passing day. Who was capable of such cruelty? What drove this killer to target these women? And how did investigators finally unmask the person responsible for the horror that gripped an entire community? This is the disturbing and haunting story of Steve Wright, infamously known as the Suffolk Strangler. The investigation began with a grim and horrifying discovery: 5 bodies, all women who had been working in the red light district of Ipswich. Each case sent shockwaves through the community as fear and paranoia grew with every new victim. The police were faced with a daunting and urgent task: to find the killer, or killers, before more lives were lost. Time was running out, and the public's trust in law enforcement was beginning to waver. Detectives worked around the clock, sifting through hundreds of tips, CCTV footage, and forensic evidence. But among the chaos and uncertainty, one name began to surface repeatedly: Steve Wright. As investigators delved deeper, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The breakthrough came when forensic teams discovered DNA evidence on 3 of the victims, evidence that pointed directly to Steve Wright. It was the first major turning point in the case, a glimmer of clarity in an otherwise tangled web of fear and speculation. But for Detective Chief Superintendent Gull and his team, the decision wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. They now faced a critical crossroads. Should they move in and arrest Wright immediately, or bide their time and gather even more conclusive evidence? "We were confident that he was involved," one officer later recalled. But the big question was he primarily responsible, or was there a chance he was simply an accomplice? We couldn't afford to make a mistake. That's why we made the strategic decision to wait 48 hours, place him under surveillance, monitor his every move, and plan the arrest with precision. During that time, detectives turned their attention to Wright's personal life. He lived on London Road, eerily close to the very streets where the victims had last been seen alive, right in the heart of Ipswich's red light district. On the surface, he appeared to be an ordinary, unremarkable man, a forklift truck driver with a quiet demeanor, living with his partner, who worked night shifts at a local call center. Nothing about him screamed danger or raised suspicion until the police began to dig deeper. As the layers of his life were peeled back, a far more sinister side began to emerge. Wright had a history of failed relationships, financial struggles, and a disturbing connection to the world of sex workers. Behind his calm exterior was a man with a dark past and a chilling secret, one that would soon shock the entire nation. Wright had a minor criminal record, nothing that initially screamed serial killer. But in 2001, he was caught stealing cash from a hotel where he worked as a barman. At the time, it seemed like a petty crime, easily forgotten. But that one misstep led to his DNA being taken and entered into the National DNA Database, a routine procedure that would later prove to be a pivotal turning point in the Suffolk murder investigation. Just 48 hours after the DNA match was confirmed, the police knew it was time to act. In the early hours of the morning, as the streets of Ipswich lay silent, officers made their move. At approximately 5 a.m., Steve Wright was arrested at his home on suspicion of murdering all 5 women. The calm of the neighborhood was shattered as officers descended upon his residence. Inside, Wright appeared stunned, almost as if he knew the inevitable had finally caught up with him. He reportedly nearly collapsed during the arrest, his knees buckling under the weight of the moment. But once in custody, his demeanor changed. He became eerily calm, detached, and completely emotionless, as though he had switched off all human feeling. During 8 grueling hours of interrogation, detectives tried to break through his cold exterior. But Wright remained silent, offering nothing. Every question, no matter how simple or direct, was met with the same stonewall response: no comment. His refusal to cooperate was frustrating, but investigators didn't need his words. The evidence was beginning to speak for itself, and it was damning. Determined to build an airtight case, police meticulously dissected every part of Wright's life. His clothing was seized, his car impounded, and even the carpet from his home was ripped up and sent for forensic analysis. It didn't take long for the results to come in. On a fluorescent work jacket he owned, investigators discovered traces of blood, DNA that matched two of the victims, Annette and Paula. In his Ford Mondeo, further blood evidence was found, tiny droplets belonging to Paula, spotted on the back seat. These weren't coincidences. They were breadcrumbs, each one leading deeper into the truth. But the forensic trail didn't end there. The bodies of Tanya and Gemma, recovered from a quiet brook, carried more silent clues. Tiny fragments of carpet fibers were discovered, fibers that matched the footwell of Wright's car. Alongside those, fibers from his clothing were found embedded in the victim's remains. These microscopic pieces of evidence, though seemingly insignificant on their own, became powerful puzzle pieces, each one placing Wright at the center of the crime. Together, they formed a devastating picture, a man who had carefully crafted a facade of normalcy, all while harboring the darkest of secrets. The forensic evidence was irrefutable, and slowly but surely, the net around Steve Wright tightened. 11 months after the funerals of the 5 victims, Steve Wright appeared at Ipswich Crown Court to stand trial for their murders. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence: DNA matches, fiber transfers, blood traces, and Wright's own admission that he had been with 4 of the victims. Wright's defense? Coincidence. He claimed his DNA was there simply because he had been with the women, not because he had killed them. He repeated this explanation 53 times during cross-examination, hoping to cast doubt on the case. After a 6-week trial, the jury took just 6 hours to reach their verdict. The tension in the courtroom was heavy. For the victims' families, this was the moment they had waited for. Steve Wright was found guilty on all counts. The serial killer behind one of the most horrifying murder sprees in Britain was finally brought to justice. Our sympathies are with the families. Steve Wright preyed on these women when they were most vulnerable. He had life and death in his hands, and he chose to take lives. Thanks to the tireless work of police and forensic teams, Wright is now serving a life sentence. But one haunting question remains: why did he do it? Only he knows the answer. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping true crime content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.